This is a public preview of my Human 23 presentation on VR. I apologize for the sound quality. I'm doing this from a less than ideal location. The question is, where are we with this? And by this, I'm referring to VR, specifically interactions with knowledge and virtual reality. And by virtual reality, I'm really talking about fully immersive environments by any name. I don't think we will work all day in VR, but I do think that headsets can become thinking caps if we are careful with what we build in terms of tools, infrastructures, and maybe most importantly, people's expectations. Will VR constrain us or free us? I'm not here with answers. I'm here hoping we can come up with better questions together. What happens when we no longer need a substrate, a medium for interaction? This is the end goal of HCI, right? Invisible interface. Possible? Yes, of course it is. But I think it's more interesting to look at what happens when the substrate almost disappears. Do interactions get easier? No, not necessarily. Think of dancing, sports, activities with very little interaction with anything other than our bodies. These are all high effort, high training activities. With VR, this is where we're going, potentially. So one of the questions is, when we can reinvent tools in this entirely new environment, which tools will be useful and how will we define tool? Please note that for my presentation, all of these questions will be available at a Google Doc sheet for us to collaborate on after this presentation. These are questions we need to ask in conjunction for what kind of environment we want to work in, since it's all synthetic. What environment will we be working in? Early VR was fully immersive. However, Apple has now introduced spatial computing, where you're by default in your room in AR and you have windows, volume, and spaces. Is this how we want to work? Maybe. We don't know. We can't legitimately complain. So the question is this a necessary step of training wheels for full VR? Or is it retarding deeper dreaming of what VR can be? I hold human imagination to be one of the most powerful faculties we possess, something to be cherished and nurtured, not to be put into boxes. How else can we navigate to a better future if we cannot dream it? The opportunities at this point are wide open. Let us not prematurely constrain them. Let us proactively dream of powerfully interactive knowledge worlds. These images, by the way, were all created by generative AI based on Apple's Vision Person that you saw in the illustration earlier. I have to say I prefer dragons to boxes. The question, of course, is will AI multiplied by VR be more powerful than our imagination? That is an entirely different and new dimension, not something I will go into today. We cannot easily separate environment from tool anymore. Environment from information. Excuse me. We cannot easily separate information from tool anymore, or information from interaction. So how about text and VR? Yeah, it's important. This is symbol manipulation at scale. Symbol manipulation meaning encoded language thought with grammar at scale is the VR side of things. So let's look at this, a document VR. Open it, it appears in front of me at a comfortable reading distance, angle, and size. Fair enough. I then gesture to all the graphs of the document onto one wall and all the pictures onto another. Questions start to happen. What is a wall? Is it something defined as a rectangle or semantically? In other words, can I call my wall a graphs wall and another my pictures wall? This would be useful if I want to be able to work in different environments, maybe home, office, and elsewhere, where every time I open this document, these things are in known spaces, or are they just floating in space? Question, if this is a shared environment, what software owns my work product in the environment? And also, what are the items positioned in relation to? Is it my head, my desk, the room, the walls? And what is a space, this entire space, and how do we move between spaces? How do we transfer information that's created in these environments? We certainly don't want to go back to the days of Microsoft Office and Apple and incompatibilities. What can be seen, interacted with, and taken in shared spaces? If I hold up a picture, does that mean you have access to it? Does that mean you're going to see the exact same picture I do, or maybe a lower resolution version of it? Maybe different users have a blurred out version. So the question is, where is something in VR and what is it in relation to? These are deep questions that need serious thought and experimentation. So I was looking at graphs, and graphs without text are not all that useful. They're lumpy things, just to go back to white text. So a knowledge graph in VR, it's amazing. I can think and work at room scale. However, even at a desktop or laptop scale, it can get messy and overwhelming. Key is selection and control. Excuse me. Key is selection, control, and view control. Control is the ability to act, react, connect, and undo. An illustration for the map view in my word processor author. I define a concept and then use group selections to organize it. So I select JSON, go to define comment, select what it is, and then I set it as a just okay, and I decide to select all the metadata. And by selecting it, it means hiding and then bringing back. When you bring back, they're all selected. So now I can do the normal keyboard shortcuts of aligned left, right, like you can do in any word processor. I do the same with all the people. So I chunk them up. And now they're over here on the right. Just move them over here. This Now, this type of interaction is very different from where you see all the lines all the time. In this system, the lines only appear when you select something. Select one thing or many things. When you point to a line, you will see why that line was generated. So this is something that we have on the Mac, and I am working on the best interactions to bring it into a VR environment. The point was that interaction is wonderful. We also need more powerful views to select and organize when we have huge canvases. Otherwise, it's a mess. Further question from this is, where is the equivalent of control click in VR? Will it be gestures, menus? Will they remain wild for long or become standardized? Interesting, fun, and important questions. So in closing, the goal for VR, my goal for VR, is to create an environment where my brain can breathe. This is something I realized only recently when I look at the Monday meetings we have at the Future Text Lab. What to me is exciting is that, sure, sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's different and difficult because we are a very different bunch of people, all of us. But essentially, the environment with these incredible people allows my brain to breathe, and I hope to build work environments that will do the same for people. VR extends our potential. How we choose to extend ourselves defines who we are and who we want to be. So thank you for listening. This has been a call to arms to think about thoughts in multiple dimensions of freedom. There's an outline of the questions I've asked here on the screen and a link to the Google Doc, where I hope we will collaborate on the day. Thank you so much for your patience.